Good evening, good evening, good evening. I hope everyone is doing well tonight. Welcome to our Parent University session, and tonight we will be discussing bullying awareness. So when we talk about the purpose of Parent University, the purpose of Parent University is to inform, involve, educate, engage, and to empower our parents and stakeholders. Two of our main focuses are on mental health and bullying. We've recently partnered with Care Solace, who guides the transition to mental health services by coordinating care across all local areas, school and community members. Please stay tuned for upcoming student-led mental health chats in addition to our mental health symposium on January 28, 2023. Tonight, our focus is on bullying awareness. October was first declared as National Bullying Prevention Month in 2006. Since then, October has been a time to acknowledge that bullying has devastating effects on children and families, such as school avoidance, loss of self-esteem, increased anxiety, and depression. We have an app called Stop It. Please make sure you are downloading that app, and you can also report any instances of bullying through the website. So make sure you go to the Crowley ISD webpage, and if you have any incidents, whether it's involving yourself or any classmates, you can report that anonymously. So I'm Rashad Muhammad, the Director of Student Engagement and Parent Community Partnerships, and I'll be the moderator tonight. And I want to introduce you to a few very special people. So our panelists include Ms. Kim Thompson, who is a counselor at Sue Crouch Elementary, Ms. Jasmine Tucker, who is the LPC Associate, LCDCI 1 Middle School Lead Teacher at Crowley Middle School, and Ms. Kelly Phillips, who is an LPCS Social Emotional Crisis Counselor at North Crowley High School and North Crowley 9th grade campus. I also want to introduce to you Ms. Kimberly Buckhalton, who is the Director of Student Behavior Management Systems, and Ms. Shayna Pink, who is a counselor at Crowley Learning Center. Let's turn it over to our wonderful guest.
Good evening, everyone. So tonight's topic is bullying. So before we start this process, I think that we need to define bullying. I think bullying has become a buzzword that a lot of people are using, but we truly don't know and understand what the word bullying means. So based on what bullying shows here as the definition, I won't read it all to you, but some words were highlighted. It's unwanted. It's aggressive behavior. It's repeated behavior, which is one of the key words I want you to know, repeated behavior. Sometimes we have isolated incidents with students that happen. Sometimes people just don't get along, and you may have that incident, but bullying is really repeated and repetitive behavior based on a particular student. Also, it's on purpose and it's intentional. I've intentionally identified you as someone who I want to continue to do disrespectful behavior to. And it's several types of bullying. So we'll go through those also tonight. So why do people bully? It's several reasons why people bully. We listed a couple of here on the bullet points, but I always tell students that I counsel at Crowley Learning Center that a lot of times people make a decision to bully based on their experiences and what they're going through and how they feel. Sometimes internal feelings will reflect out to other people, unfortunately. And so this is the reason why, as a counseling department, we have made our big decision to make sure that we are preventative when it comes to bullying, to meet with students, to do guidance lessons, to make sure that we're speaking with students about how they feel, and to find another way to get out those emotions instead of making a decision to bully another student. All right. So how is someone bullied? So we have different type of bullying. You may have heard of some of them. One of the top ones you probably have heard about has been physical bullying, but We have verbal bullying. We also have emotional bullying. We also have when someone excludes you from a situation or a particular activity. And one of the top ones that is here in the last decade is cyber. Cyberbullying has become a big issue, especially for our secondary students. One of the top things, students are teased, and students can be teased on all four of these platforms. So with bullying, being called names and left out and hitting and kicking and threatening are all things that can happen throughout all of these four types of bullying. So physical bullying is one of the top ones that everyone is probably familiar with, and one of the ones that probably gets your attention the most are things that you automatically notice. So when a student makes a decision to do something physical to a student, whether it's hitting, whether it's kicking, whether it's throwing, things that can actually harm that particular person or do some type of bodily injury, those are physical forms of bullying. So some of the things that you may see on different campuses when you have heard about bullying, some things or incidents that may have happened are listed here are different common types of bullying: tripping someone, pinching someone, pulling hair, shoving, and possibly even fighting. So verbal abuse. To me, I call it verbal abuse. It's bullying. It's one of the big things that students do. Sometimes when I don't know how to talk to a counselor or talk to a parent or somewhere else, I take out my aggression towards another student verbally. And that looks like saying things that are offensive, saying things that are out of that person's character sometimes, saying things to people that can definitely belittle them and hurt them to the core. So some of the different types, people make threats to verbal abuse, verbal bullying, gossiping, rumors, slandering name, racist and homophobic threats are something that we've seen here in the last couple of years with the different things that we've had going on. And so it's conversations that the counseling department have had to have with students, just making sure that they make better choices in how they speak with other students and how they discuss certain topics that could definitely be sensitive. Emotional bullying or exclusion. So when a student makes a decision to exclude someone from something, whether it's you can't sit at this table in the cafeteria, or whether it's we only have football players that can do this, those different ways that students can make a decision to block a student out of having a right to do the things that every other student has the right to do. I think that sometimes in this, you try to make friends, and sometimes in making friends, everybody doesn't have to be friends. But when you have made a decision to exclude this person purposely and intentionally and repeatedly in different situations, this is where you can start this emotional bullying for the student. So some of the common types, leaving people out, as I indicated. Lying and spreading rumors is a way to exclude people from things. If you start a rumor on a particular student, it may make it difficult for that student to participate with other students in other activities. So based on something that's untrue, you have excluded this student from opportunities to build relationships, to be a part of different activities based on something that you said. Cyberbullying is one of the buzz things that is going on right now. Our students love social media. They love their technology. And as a parent, I know that it's sometimes difficult to manage it. If you're not a parent who's knowledgeable about technology and social media, it can be difficult, but it's something that it definitely has to be done. The majority of the bullying on secondary campuses happen on social media. For our younger students in elementary, they don't have access to a lot of technology, but I think that sometimes if they have access to it, it's a possibility certain things can happen for those 4th and 5th grade students. So monitoring all of the social media sites that they're on, monitoring the technology that your student may have access to can help prevent cyberbullying. And also having access to their password. You pay the bill, you should be able to have that password and be able to have that conversation with the student on why you're checking it. And not only that, Kimberly Buckholton brought up earlier when we were discussing this topic, how important it is for students to protect their passwords from other students and making sure that they know that if I go under your password, I am you. And at that point, I could be held liable or accountable for the things and decisions that you choose to make on my social media platform. So it's very important as a parent that you monitor it, that you sporadically maybe take those things and look through them, and also make sure students don't have various multiple accounts. A lot of students may expose you to one account that they have, but they may have other accounts under other names. So having those conversations with students about the effect and longevity of posting things and cyberbullying. So some common types of social media cyberbullying, I mean, it can just vary and vary. I think each year I find out about new things that students do through social media, because it is definitely trending and it is evolving. You know, just when you think you've caught up with something, something else is created. Students can post rumors, students can post meaningful things, students can also share pictures, students can post pictures, unwanted pictures. Students can also take videos of different things and post them. So this is the reason why you have to have these conversations with students, because we know that when you post certain things, they never disappear. They're always available. And when you share something, more than likely someone else is going to share it with someone else. That is the trend of social media and what it looks like. All right. So thank you for your time. I hope I've helped with just giving an introduction of what tonight's topic is about. Now I will pass the mic over to Kimberly Thompson.
Hey, real quick, before we go on to Ms. Thompson, there was a comment which goes in line with what you just mentioned about, cyber, and it basically talked about airdropping unwanted photos for peers to see. So that's a comment from a parent.
I would definitely have students, when they come to school, to take it off. You have the option to enable airdropping, and students need to take advantage of that, and parents need to have that conversation with them, because the thing about airdropping, you never know what may drop. So you have now opened the door to be exposed to anything, and also to have different things on your phone based on airdropping.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kim Thompson, and I'm the elementary counselor representing you guys tonight. And I'm from Sue Crouch Elementary. I've been at that campus. This is year 11. So I've had thousands of kids go through the building, and I've seen lots of different types of bullying. So let's get into it. So Ms. Pink did a great job going through the different types. So I won't read those to you, but just kind of point out some of the differences that we see on an elementary campus. With physical bullying, we see that a lot because our little ones just don't have the words yet to explain how they're feeling. And a lot of the times when they're upset, it just comes through with an aggressive act. Also, I noticed that in areas where there's a sports game or PE, we will often see a lot of bullying through that because of just the fact that someone's angry because someone didn't do well in a sport, and it carries over into the classroom sometimes. And that becomes a big issue, especially with our boys. They get very aggressive when things like that happen. And even if they're just play fighting or slap boxing, it just goes to that next level, and then it becomes hurt feelings. It doesn't get resolved right away. Those feelings get deeper and deeper, and then unfortunately, some bullying can begin to happen. On the verbal side, it's very similar. The intent is usually pretty mild. It's not anything that kids want to do to get in trouble or to cause a problem, but because they have a very difficult time letting things go and just kind of walking away from things, they dig in a little deeper. And when that happens, that's when we'll see some bullying. Another thing I notice in the elementary campus is kids like the attention. If they're making jokes and they get a laugh, that kind of gives them a little bit of confidence. And unfortunately, it's a negative way to feel powerful. And sometimes when they find an easy target, they will just roast on a student or call them names. And that student is too afraid to say anything. And then we have a bullying situation. With cyberbullying, it's very rare. I saw this more when Sue Crouch was an intermediate campus. It does not happen all that often. Now that we're pre-K through fifth grade, every now and again, there may be a group chat where a rumor is started. Honestly, the biggest issue with the cyberbullying I saw was really when a student wanted to take another student's phone and was bullying the other student to give her the phone because hers had been confiscated. So that was the only issue with cyberbullying we really had this year, and that was 5th grade. But the emotional and exclusion does happen a lot. It starts a little bit with our girls, and I see it starting in 2nd grade and of course going up through 5th. There's some sort of sometimes currency that goes with friendship. If you don't buy me this, I won't be your friend, or policing friendships. You can't play with her if you're going to be my friend. And I always tell parents, please check your cupboards, make sure snacks aren't getting excessively taken out at home, or the snack account on your lunch account is not going to be overrun, because unfortunately kids do use that as a form of friendship, and it can get expensive. So just something to keep track of. So prevention is key. One thing we try to do is teach students words, because like I said, they don't come knowing the language. So we try to teach them early what boundaries are, what saying no is, how to report bullying, how to build community, what the difference is between tattling and reporting, because we do hear, well, I'm not a snitch, I don't want to get my friend in trouble. So I really spend a lot of time telling them, no, this is not snitching, this is reporting, because we want our classmates to feel safe. We have an SEL specialist on our campus, Dr. Leslie Griffin. A lot of our elementary campus has SEL specialists that works hand in hand with the counselors. So we spend a lot of time on conflict resolution and try to stop the conflict before it turns into full-fledged bullying. And I do try to meet with every student on campus at least once a 6 weeks to check in with them to see if anything's going on, because they may not report it if I don't check in, and silence is a big problem when it comes to bullying. So those are some things that we've noticed there. So when students do report, the first thing I do is I always ask them, is there a person on the school campus that you trust? Go to that person if anything is bothering you. It doesn't have to be me. It could be the coach. It could be a para that you really like. It could be the custodian, the cafeteria lady. It doesn't matter, but somebody you trust. And usually that adult will come to me and say, this student has shared this with me, and then I will look into it if the student has reported it. Sometimes I get reports directly from parents, and in those cases, I go directly to our administrators and they begin the investigation. And you will hear more about that later in our presentation. That is all for me. Mr. Muhammad, do you have anything to add?
No, ma'am. We can go ahead to Ms. Tucker.
Okay, I just wanted to add one thing. I'm sorry. SEL means social and emotional learning, for any parent that doesn't know what that acronym means. So they actually have a curriculum, and they provide that social and emotional support that students need on campus.
Thank you, Ms. P.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. I am Jasmine Tucker. I am the lead middle school counselor for Crowley ISD. So I would like to kind of do the same as Mrs. Thompson, just kind of explaining those 4 areas of bullying, but on a middle school level. So what does bullying look like on the middle school level? It's a lot of things that go on. And I want to really point out the biggest one that a lot of our parents and our kids often overlook is where bullying takes place. Sometimes we think it only happens in the gym or it only happens in the lunchroom. But honestly, when kids are walking home, when they're getting on the bus, a lot of that happens, even during our passing periods. So our students that transition from elementary to middle school, it's a big transition for our kids. Our kids come from 6th grade, having recess, not having that many classes, to having 8 to 9 classes, right? And so most of our middle schools have 8 to 9 classes a day. It's a lot for our kids. And so them transitioning to that role makes things a lot more challenging for them. So when it comes to passing period, going from one period to the next, a lot of things take place during that time. A lot of conversations, a lot of negative interactions take place during the passing period. So although we're aware of the lunchroom, we're aware of the gym, we're aware of the bus and walking home, passing periods are really big. So that's something to be mindful of when you're talking to your students at home. Hey, when you have 4 to 5 minutes to get to class, get some water, use the restroom, dab up a friend, and you keep it pushing, because we want to make sure that we're limiting that negative interaction so we can focus on the 80% that's going great on our campus. But also to think about a lot of the effects of bullying for our middle school students, it really does fall under that social emotional piece. A lot of our kids internalize that battle, and then they feel as though the world is over, right? So our middle school students really don't have the mental capacity to truly comprehend and understand what is taking place. They cannot read in between the lines. They are still very black and white, and they're struggling with conceptual thoughts and ideas and friendships. I mean, our brains aren't even fully developed until we're 25 years old anyway. So think about your kid that's 11 to 13 or 14 years old. They're having a hard time comprehending, why is this kid doing this to me? Why is this kid saying this? Why is this kid staring at me, right? And I get a lot of that. Well, they keep staring at me in gym. Maybe they hate me. Maybe I'm ugly. Maybe something's wrong with me. So maybe I should just cut myself to make myself feel better. That's not the case. We don't want our kids to feel that way, but that is the reality. So I wanted to make sure that we're being very transparent here about some of the effects that takes place, because a lot of our parents are taken aback when we have to call home and say, hey, little Johnny, little Kim, she's down here having her issues, having his issues. This is what took place, and a lot of parents are quite surprised. But having that anxious avoidance of going to school. Maybe they're going to the nurse office all the time because their stomach is upset, or they're constantly wanting to be on their phones or have their headphones in because they want to block out the noise. Those are common side effects to look into. And if you notice that your student is having any of these possible effects, please talk to them, reach out to them, kind of dig a little deeper and see what's going on, and see if you can contact their school counselor for further information. So when we look at the 4 areas, right, of physical, verbal, cyber, emotional, and exclusion, it is quite similar on all levels, but they do have a little variation here. So something I wanted to point out for physical is the slap boxing and running. So in middle school, it's quite common for kids to just run up to someone and neck them on the back of their head, or kind of pick a fight with them. And when you look into it, they may say it's innocent, but when it happens, like Mrs. Pink already stated repeatedly, it is bullying. There's a difference between a mean moment and bullying, right? Because mean moment, it happened once. But when the student is constantly getting slapped upside their head, constantly getting ran up on, right? So someone running up on them, trying to grab them, trying to shove them, trying to, flip their hat off or flip their hair, whatever the case may be, that slap boxing is invasion of that private space without consent from that student. And if it's happening over and over again, it's considered bullying. Verbally, so this is quite common, AKA the gossiping, all of that happening on our campus. A lot of our kids are starting to understand who they are. Their hormones are kind of growing and rising. So they're feeling themselves a little bit, right? And so they feel that if I talk about so-and-so and degrade them, maybe that will make me look like I'm cool, like I'm the cool kid. And so we see a lot of that happening quite frequently with our students. And we want to make sure that we're encouraging our kids to continue to have kind language, continue to show grace, to be patient with one another, but they don't understand it right now. So if we are modeling that, not only as educators that they, are with Monday through Friday, but even at home, if we're modeling the appropriate language, modeling how we speak to someone in the middle of a conflict, if we're modeling that, it's going to teach our kids how to have proper dialogue with one another. Cyberbullying. A lot of our kids are creating group chats on Instagram. So they have like 10 to 15 kids in a group chat, and they're sending screenshots. They're talking about different people. And our middle school kids are bold to the point they will pull the victim into the group chat and have a whole bashing session. So we have to be mindful of monitoring our students' use of social media, monitoring when they're on their phones, how frequently they're on their phones, who they have as friends. That is something that's commonly happening. And because a lot of kids like to delete those chats, it's really hard to find proof whenever the investigation takes place. So I always encourage our students, if there's anything that takes place, screen record it. take a picture of it. Have mom take a picture, mom or dad or guardian take a picture of it with their phone. So that way you can have some type of documentation to support what's taking place. Another thing that I wanted to point out was roast pages. So exactly what that is, we have different students making roast pages where students are posting pictures of one another on social media without their permission. And they're saying mean comments or derogatory language towards that. And so it starts getting more and more traction because more and more kids are trying to log on there and make comments and like it. Again, it's not kind. It's nothing that we want to encourage our students to do. So being mindful of that usage can limit that type of interaction. Lastly is emotional and exclusion, bullying. So that's just excluding one another from the regular circle of friends, but we see that often happening during our lunch time. So kids have their moments to sit with their group of friends during their designated lunches. It's not recess. It's a time for them to just sit there and eat and socialize. We also see that during gym time, and it can cause a lot of issues. We see a lot of fights or back and forth verbal altercations taking place because of someone feeling alienated. So making sure that we are surrounding ourselves with like-minded people. That way our kids can do the same. For our point of contact for middle school campuses, we do want to encourage our students to use the same concept that they did in elementary school. So talk to a trusted adult. It doesn't matter who that adult is, as long as it's someone that they trust and have developed a healthy rapport with, because that's where our kids are a lot more vulnerable. They're a lot more honest and transparent. I always tell my kids, be hot, honest, open, and transparent, because we cannot help you if we do not know the full story. We want to serve the full kid, not just bits and pieces. And then in the middle school level, they go and write a statement for the administrators. So if a student comes to a teacher, a trusted adult, a counselor like myself, of course, we do not dismiss them. We honor them. We want the kids to feel seen and feel heard, but to take proper action and follow proper protocol, we have to push our students to the administrators, let them write a statement, let them voice what's happening and be very detailed as possible so the administrators can handle it with clarity. Because we as counselors, as teachers, we cannot provide discipline for those students. We can only help intervene and mediate to make sure that, again, everyone's voices are being heard and being seen. But the biggest purpose here is to not only hold the bully accountable for their actions, but we want to hold our victims accountable for being open and for using their voice, advocating for themselves. That's a big word, to advocate for yourself as a young person. They don't understand how powerful that is. So we want to teach them how to use their voices, be solution focused. We're not here to sit here and point fingers left and right the entire time. Our goal is to get to the root of it and come up with a solution so we can thrive together and be safe on our campus, so we can thrive and learn and be successful as we shift the narrative of middle school campuses when it comes to bullying. And at this time, I will pass it along to the amazing Kelly Phillips.
Well, thank you. Wonderful, Jasmine Tucker. We're going to move on to high school. And we can go ahead to the next slide. So a lot of the physical, verbal, cyber, and emotional, it's very similar. So we're kind of repeating ourselves, but we just have to remember that at the high school level, our students have more resources. They have, you thought Ms. Thompson talked about, the kids not having the words. Our high school kids have a little bit higher vocabulary. And so it looks a little different. So physical is pretty much the same, but, we're going to add in that more mature thing of maybe some sexual harassment that you might see, which is also considered bullying. And then our verbal, maybe even adding also sexual comments along with the rumors and name calling and threatening harm. Now, cyberbullying, and that is the biggest thing that we see at high school. And just like what Ms. Tucker said, we have a lot of group chats where the bullying happens. So it's not even just the social media posts where we can see the comments. These are things that are happening in private group chats. And just like Ms. Tucker said, the only way we're going to know about them is if someone screenshots it, because we're not in the group chat. Spreading rumors, making threats online, making fake accounts. One of the things Ms. Tucker touched on is it's kind of like I say that those of us from who went to school in the 90s, we had slam books. And so it was just a little spiral notebook that was passed around the campus and not nice things were written in it. But now it's to the next level because the slam book has gone virtual. And so now you've got it across the globe. People can read this slam book. So it's pretty much, posting mean things about people, making up social media pages so that for this specific purpose of saying mean things, spreading rumors, all those kind of things that we see. And they're very advanced and it's very under the radar for a lot of us. It's not out in the open for us to see. And then for emotional, humiliation, encouraging others to exclude someone, spreading the gossip, or using intimidation or making threats. So again, a lot of these are looking the same, we're using the same terminology from elementary to high school, but just keeping in mind that it's escalated in high school because of the resources of the students, the ability to have access to social media through their telephone in their pocket at all times, and such things like that. So just keeping in mind how it looks more advanced at this level. And so it's important as a parent to know what to look for, because unfortunately, I know for elementary students, you might have them come home and tell you what's going on. They're more likely to report to a parent. But at the high school level, they're not as open with communication. And so it's really important to look for those signs and ask the questions and keep the lines of communication open, listen non-judgmentally so that that child feels comfortable to share. But some of the things that we look for is school refusal. So if you have a student that all the way up through middle school, they were fine with going to school and all of a sudden they want, they're sick to their stomach, they don't want to come to school. There's reason, there has to be a reason for that. Sudden drops in grades, isolating themselves, withdrawing, avoiding gatherings, maybe feeling more moody than usual. I know that, for adolescents, there's a level of normal moodiness that comes with being an adolescent. But when you see that more moody than usual, when there are drastic changes in behavior, when they're hiding their phone when there's an adult around because they don't want you to know what's happening, or when they get upset after using technology. So as a parent, it is so important just to keep your eyes open for these things and ask those questions, because oftentimes our high school students will not openly share what's going on. And we don't want them to suffer through bullying and abuse to the point that we have some severe mental health challenges as a result. We want to intervene as soon as possible. Next slide. Thank you. And another thing I think is super important as a parent is to encourage your child to not contribute to the problem. So don't like the post that someone has that's mean to someone. So just refrain from interacting with those posts. Report any bullying that they see, and they can always do that anonymously. They don't have to be a snitch. To make sure that they are being a positive support to those victims that they see. And that they should also remember that most of what they see online is probably not true. So passing it on is not a good idea. And most importantly, to identify a trusted adult, someone at school, someone at home, someone in their life that they feel comfortable reporting to, because they're not always going to want to tell the counselor or the AP, but anyone that they feel comfortable talking to speak up. And whether it's them being bullied or something that they've witnessed, it's important for them to use their voice. And I will pass it on to Ms. Buckhalton.
Good evening. I'm Kimberly Buckhalton. I am the Director of Student Behavior Management Systems. I've been in education for 22 years, 17 years of those as a secondary administrator, worked on high school as well as middle school campuses as an assistant, associate, dean, and a principal. So I have seen my share, thousands and thousands of kids in 4 different districts. So I've seen bullying multiple different ways. Crowley ISD has done a wonderful job with our systems and implementing policy about bullying. If you feel like, after hearing the things that the counselors have talked about, if you feel like your child has been a victim of bullying, or if you think that your child may be the aggressor or have been accused or alleged that they are the aggressor, please visit the Crowley ISD website. Go to the next slide. at the Crowley ISD tx.org. Here under parents and students, if you click there, it'll take you to a page that a directory where you can find under B, bullying prevention. Once you click this link, it'll take you to our bullying prevention page. I want to bring your attention to the left margin, several resources. There's a great resource that is a form. It's a flow chart that the Texas School Safety Institute at Texas State University put out. And it really describes in detail, gives you step-by-step of how to identify if your child has been a victim of bullying. And how to identify bullying. There's also resources where you can find access to counseling options and supports. On this page too, if you look to the middle, you'll see Crowley ISD's board policy around bullying. So if you want to get more information, that is our policy. But at the very top, there's our reporting a bullying incident portal. If you click that link, it'll take you to a form from our district website. You fill it out. Just as the lady said earlier today, as your child gives you information or you start to see signs of bullying, the most important thing that I can tell you from an administrator standpoint as we investigate bullying is that the sooner we know, the better. A lot of times, like they've said, students will not want to tell parents for fear of because a lot of times, especially at the younger ages and middle school as well, they think that that person is their friend or the aggressor presents themselves as a friend, or we're just playing or we're just messing around. And so as you're having these conversations and not saying to plant a seed in your child's head, but just have those open lines of communication to get as much information as possible. If there's been cyberbullying, which we see a lot of at the middle and high school level, that's probably the majority of where our bullying is taking place, is through virtual means. So screenshotting, getting information, saving. I encourage kids not to participate, not to go back and forth in those group chats they put them in, because as we investigate, we have to look at both sides. So everyone's going to have their information. So once you fill out this incident report and you click submit, now, if you need to get additional information, you can also, on this form, you can save your progress and come back. If you need to get information about witnesses' names, you can get as much information as you have, save your progress, go back, get more information, put it on there, and then submit. Once you submit it, I received this form. I received all bullying allegations that come through the district, as well as our Chief of Student Services, Mr. Swan. I get those, I look at them, and I send it to the campus administration for investigation. They will investigate the allegation. It could take up to 10 business days. We want to do a complete and thorough investigation. Those investigations consist of getting all types of evidence, including witness statements. So sometimes it may take a little longer if there's students that are not, that may be absent from school, maybe a weekend occurs, if a teacher was a witness. So we have to get all witness statements if we need to review video footage, et cetera. And so it could take some time. Once that investigation is complete, go to the next slide. If the allegation is determined to be an act of bullying, disciplinary actions will be taken. Parents of both the aggressor and the victim will be notified of counseling options, and then we'll put some necessary actions in place to protect that victim from future acts of bullying by the aggressor. Protective actions may include, but does not exclude, stay away agreements. We have done transfers of classes. For instance, if those students have class together, ideally, we like to remove the aggressor, but a lot of times the parents of the victim would prefer, or that child would prefer, to be moved. So we give them priority. We're going to make it as comfortable as possible for the victim so that we can restore their emotional state as a result of the bullying. And so we put some protective actions in place. At the most extreme level, I've been in administration for 17 years now. I've only had one occasion where I had to actually move a child to a whole nother school, and that was not in Crowley ISD. But that can be the most, extreme transfer of a student but it's usually classes, maybe they're the same, sitting at the same lunch table. We separate those students. So those stay away agreements pretty much help. Due to FERPA, we are not allowed to give information about disciplinary consequences about the aggressor to the victim or their parents. However, I can assure you that if bullying, in fact, is determined to be proven, then there will be disciplinary consequences that is applicable for the child's grade, the severity of the bullying, age appropriate, and in line with district, local, and policy.
All right, thank you, Ms. Buckhalter, and thank you, ladies, for the presentation. You all did a great job. Now we have a couple of questions in the chat. The first one, how do we distinguish between normal child social behaviors and something that needs intervention? My child is on a younger side, but has continually been what he calls bullied in his shoes. Anyone want to speak to that?
I guess, again, I think that's what's age appropriate. I think the best thing to do to be on the safe side, I want, talk to your child, if they're on the younger side, their homeroom teacher or their counselor, that can kind of direct you. Every situation is unique and different. And so developmentally, it depends on your individual child and that situation. So I think the best course of action is to try to get as much information as possible. Encourage your child, again, to find that trusted adult on their campus, or you make that connection for them, make an appointment, kind of go through. And that way at the campus, they will be able to help distinguish between, okay, is this kind of normal, age appropriate, or is it something to be concerned of and we need to look more into it? So again, it just depends on the situation, the setting, and the child's, what's going on at that moment. So there's no one set answer. It just really depends. But again, reaching out and partnering with the school, it's the best course of action.
And I definitely think having a conversation with your student and teaching your student more language. Sometimes the word that they hear the most is bullying. So that's the word that they want to use. But it's sitting down, having a conversation with them about exactly what happened, and then maybe introducing them to some new vocabulary that they could possibly use to express how they're feeling in that situation. And if it is bullying, absolutely going through the steps and the processes that the counselor spoke about before, having that conversation with a counselor or an administrator on the campus, but making sure you provide your student with the open space to have conversation with you, and also teaching them new vocabulary to use besides that word. I think a lot of times we hear the word so much that we just say, if this happens to me, then it must be bullying. Well, let's have a conversation about exactly what happened and what are some other ways that we can work around the situation on what happened. And like I said, if you need the additional support, we're all here in Crowley ISD to provide any support that you need, whether it's a counselor, a teacher, or whether it's administration staff.
If I could just spin off of what Ms. Pink said, just to kind of reinforce what she's saying, because I see all of the bullying allegations, and I don't have the statistics in front of you, but I can definitely get that for you. But for the most part, a lot of it, once the investigations are done, we realize that it really wasn't bullying. It is just really conflict, misunderstanding. And so it looks like an imbalance of power where maybe one kid got the best of the other one, but there's going back and forth, or a set of friends. And so a lot of times, like she said, new vocabulary, getting to the root, the really seriousness of it, or the root cause or the root situation, we find a lot of times in our investigation that it really is just conflict. And so we use those conflict resolution, those restorative circles, and a lot of the SEL strategies to restore those relationships. And so again, reinforcing what she said, it's really important to just keep those lines of communication open with your child, and really with your child's friends, families as well. I think there's no better, I guess, proactive approach than to get to know the families of the kids that your child is playing and interacting with.
Thank you. So the next question says, what is being done to protect special ed students from bullying, since they are often victims of bullying by large numbers of students?
I think before I was a counselor, I was a special education teacher, and each special education teacher has a caseload. And so with those special education teachers taking the time to have conversations with the students about what it looks like and becoming an advocate for themselves. So even having a part in the meetings that they have for students with special needs, teaching them the words to say, letting them know and identify who is the person that you can have the conversation with. If you can't find the counselor, then you go to this person. If you can't find me, if I'm your case manager, then maybe you can go to the SEL specialist, providing them point people to talk to and reporting what happened. And when you find that point person based on whatever the student may be going through, I think what Ms. Tucker said, having a student be able to write the statement down so they'll be able to remember it right then when it happens is definitely key. And for that elementary student, possibly maybe having some write the statement for them so you can immediately take down what this student is struggling with and decide whether or not in an investigation done by administration, is this bullying, and then teaching the student how to be an advocate for themselves.
From a proactive standpoint, as a district, we have lessons. Character Strong is one of the programs that we use, and they provide character lessons. Campuses across our district are doing things for anti-bullying, really talking to our student population about the damages and impact that bullying has on their peers, and so really from that standpoint, protecting, meaning informing and empowering our kids, all of our kids, with information about the impact and effects of bullying. And so from kids, whether they're special ed or general ed, we are putting forth great effort to make sure that our kids are not desensitized to the impacts of bullying. We've recently launched PBIS rewards. And 10 of our schools, all of our secondary schools, and 2 elementaries will be running this process. So we're going to be really pushing and incentivizing positive behavior. And so really attacking it from if attack is the word to use, but attacking bullying from a preventative and a proactive approach is where we're really trying to, so we won't have to even be reporting bullying if we can really make it so unpopular to bully and popular to not be a bystander, then I think that's probably going to be the best approach. And that's where we're going. That's the direction that we're heading.
Thank you. Thank you. So on to the next question. Can you explain restorative circles and restorative practices, and how can parents learn these?
This is my favorite.
Yes, that's what I'm gonna say. Tucker, Phillips, I know you guys do a lot of those, so I was gonna tag team you.
Yes, this is my favorite. So the purpose of restorative circles is honestly just to create a safe space for students. We typically have a talking piece, and we use the term, you have the power to speak when you have the talking piece, and you have the power to listen when you do not have the talking piece. Not listen to respond, but listen to understand. And what it does is to create a safe space for the students to have those level 1, 2, and 3 type of conversations. So we may start off quite simple, quite easy, just to get everyone comfortable, like check the temperature of the group to see everyone and read the room essentially. And then you dive in a little deeper. So if that circle today is about healthy relationships, I may dive into a level 1 about, what is a level 2, what does friendship look like to you? Have you ever trusted someone in a friendship? What does trust look like to you in a friendship? And I may go deeper and deeper and deeper. And what it does, the purpose of it is to really expose and shine light to those hidden gems that a lot of our kids don't feel comfortable talking about. A lot of our kids are maybe have their feelings pushed to the side, or they're used to people dismissing them or making their feelings feel numb, making them feel unseen and unheard. That restorative circle provides that opportunity for them to feel heard and feel seen, but it's also to provide understanding. So even with bullying and victims or any type of conflict, is to provide understanding, allow everyone to come up with what took place and what can we do to collaborate together to come up with a solution. Even when students are getting in trouble or they're returning back from a suspension, having a re-entry circle, having that restorative re-entry circle to let them know, hey, this is what took place. I know you got in trouble for X, Y, and Z, but what do you need from your support system? What do you need from your family, from your friends, from your teachers? What can we do to support you? And then this is what we need from you. So let's collaborate to come up with a solution-focused plan to make sure that this kid or kids are successful moving forward.
And I would just like to add, just from the parents' perspective, just encouraging that conversation, just practicing those listening skills at home. I think it's really important. A lot of times as a counselor, I have students in my office that say they just feel like nobody's listening to them. And so just to take that time out to model that for them at home, giving them the space to to say what's going on with them, and then giving them that time to listen to others in the home is a good way for them to kind of practice those skills. Because a lot of the conflicts that we see, and I think a few people said this tonight, are a lot of times miscommunications, misunderstandings that blow out of proportion. And if people would just be able to communicate in a clear and effective way, we might be able to eliminate a lot of those problems that we see on a regular basis.
Thank you. And it's important to understand that, we still have the bully, and we care about that child just as much as anybody else. And restorative practices is an opportunity for us to help heal that child as well, so he or she no longer is a bully. How do I protect my child from bullying who is also concerned with consequences of speaking up?
Well, from an administrative standpoint, whenever as part of the investigation, there is a confidentiality and retaliation expectation. And so we want to, I guess, reinforce to your child as a parent that when they report it, they're going to be protected, because that child's parents will then be involved. And so just like you as a parent want them to behave and act like they're supposed to, 90%, 99% of the times, parents don't know until we as the campus tell them. So if you can assure your child that their parents are going to be notified. Also, if retaliation or comes about, then there will be further consequences that could result in a transfer of schools. So just letting your child know that they're going to be protected by our district policy for retaliation. They're going to be protected because if it's found to be bullying, we're going to separate and remove that aggressor from their class, or lunch, if that's the case, so that our protective actions will be in place to make sure that child is protected and is not scared to speak up.
Thank you. So the next question, it's actually a comment and a question. I have difficulty getting my child to talk, and she seems sad, but I'm not sure what to do. Could she be being bullied, or how do I get to the root?
I'll let some of my LPCs chime in on that.
I think one great path to take is to reach out to the counselor at the school. If you just reach out to the school counselor and then let her or him know your concerns, it helps, because we are able to pull the student in and have those conversations. And sometimes a lot of students that I talk to are reluctant to tell their parents what's going on because they don't want them to worry. They love their parents and they don't want them to worry, and they feel like they don't want to be a bother. And so sometimes it helps to have that third party that can step in and have that communication. So I would strongly just encourage reaching out to the counselor at your child's school and ask them to pull her in and see what they can come up with.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Kelly, but also in addition to that is creating like that space for them to even feel like you're human. A lot of our students do not feel as though parents have lived life before. Like they think that parents have they were born a parent, born an adult, and that's not the case. Like we've all been through a lot and have went through a lot of experiences that made us the person we are today, but our kids don't recognize that. So being a little bit more personal with them, letting them know a little bit of your story, kind of sharing bits and pieces with them so they can see that you understand them on a different level, like you can truly relate to them, will definitely kind of create that parent to child relationship to feel a lot more seamless and a lot more genuine as well.
I wanted to ask Ms. Thompson, could you, with the littles, it's always special, so maybe some guided questions or some things you could do for them?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. And I don't know the age of the student that the parent wrote about, but a lot of times, I'll just tell parents, set aside some time every day or maybe on the weekends where you guys just do something special just to hang out together. It doesn't have to be anything expensive, but just some one-on-one time. So many of my students, after we do little surveys, we find out that they just don't feel like Kelly was saying, they have anybody to talk to. Everybody kind of is on their devices at home and nobody really talks. And so there's a lot of communication that doesn't really happen. So if you could just set aside some time, just like, okay, what was your day like? And then you say, well, this happened at my work today, and what happened at school today, and make it fun and kind of silly. It'll help your student open up a bit, and they will start probably talking more than you want them to. But the good thing is they will want to come to you. But it just takes some consistency and being intentional.
Thank you. So we have a couple of comments about this. Well, one comment about the Stop It app and then a question. It says the Stop It app has been a helpful tool. I use it to report the bullying and the response was immediate. So let's go ahead and add it to the last question about Stop It. It says, how do we know if the Stop It app is actually getting the tip out to who needs to see it? Is there a confirmation that it has been reviewed or seen? Ms. Buckhorn, do you want to speak on this, or would you like me to speak on it?
I mean, if you want to, you can. We both, Mr. Muhammad and I both get the Stop It. So we're both checking them. So go ahead, Mr. Muhammad.
Well, yeah, the bottom line is that we get them. We all get them. And sometimes we get it before the principal, depending, they're always ripping and running. But if it's a situation where we feel it needs immediate attention at that time, we'll either give them a call or just, call their AP or something just to make them aware that there's a serious concern in the Stop It app. And I know Chief Maston gets those as well. And if it is, something that's very serious, I know that the Stop It administrators get those as well, and they review those, and they're usually the first ones to respond and notify us. So definitely every Stop It notification, somebody gets it. And if there's a situation where your child reports something and they feel like it has not been addressed, then make sure you're contacting administration as soon as possible. Now, if you want to remain anonymous, then maybe you could send some kind of anonymous email saying that you put in a Stop It app and you have not received any updates or anything for that report.
So I can add to that just a couple of tips. One thing, that I've noticed a couple of times when you make that report, well, just to Mr. Muhammad's point, several people are notified. So the assurance is that so many different levels of people are notified. You can assure that someone's going to get it, and they also are coded based on the severity. One thing to make sure of is that you put enough information in there. Sometimes, you got to think this is going to someone who may or may not know your child. So we've seen some Stop It reports that just have a first name and an initial, or, it doesn't get a lot of information. You may not hear something because it takes a little bit longer to dig into who, what, where, when, why. So if you have a question, or you maybe have submitted a Stop It report and you hadn't heard anything back in 24 hours, go resubmit it and make sure you put thorough information. You put the right school. One that we saw where I think a parent put their other kid's school. And so you just make sure that you put all the right information so that we get it to the right people.
Thank you for that, Ms. Buck. So I'll go ahead and answer this next one. It says, my main concern is my daughter has gone to the counselor to talk or report, and she's been turned away because they have been busy lately. So she has been reporting it to me. Who can she go to other than the counselor? So I know it was spoken about earlier about making sure you have your child go to a trusted adult on the campus, a trusted adult, so that they can expedite that conversation or meeting with the counselor. Counselors, do you have anything else to add to that?
Yes, we have a couple of other people on campus. First, it's unfortunate, and I apologize if that was your daughter's experience. We definitely, as counselors in the district, always try to be available for students. We have students in our office all the time. We're also working on paperwork. So it does get busy, but our key thing is to help students. We are advocate for students. So I'm sorry that your daughter had that experience. Some other key people on campus that can provide the same support or similar support definitely are our social and emotional specialists. We also have on some campuses, communities in school, which is social workers who can provide support too. And then some of our administrators are great support too. I know that throughout the day, different things go on various campuses, but I can assure one of those people should be available. On some campuses, they have counselor secretaries. So even providing them information where they can set an appointment, and then you will have you'll have the total attention of your counselor at that particular time when you set an appointment. And so we don't want any student to feel like they can't come to the counseling office, because that is definitely one of our top priorities, is to support students. So just giving them other people that they can reach out to, and those people have already communicated with us, and we all work together, and we'll make sure it still gets back to that counselor if at that time they're working with a particular student. The social worker or the SEL specialist will still come back to us, so we can work together as a team to ensure your student is supported the way that they need to be supported.
Absolutely. And I would like to add and emphasize on the administrators, because if that counselor or SEL specialist or social worker is not available to help with consoling the child and mediating, we want to encourage the child to write the statement, because we don't want too much time to pass to where their voice is not being heard or nothing is being done about it. So really encouraging them to go to their administrators, the AP secretary, whoever's that point of contact for that campus, to write a statement. That way they can get it on paper, get it on writing, get it out, have it documented. That way when it is time to speak with that counselor, social worker, or SEL specialist, you already had the opportunity to kind of flush out your thoughts and lay everything out, so you can kind of reprocess and manage your emotions better when you're with the appropriate person.
I want to just kind of really reinforce what Ms. Tucker said, just to make sure there's a clarity. The bullying investigations are done by the administrators. And so as we prepared for this presentation tonight, that kind of kept coming up from my counselors, that a lot of times, because it is an emotional situation, naturally kids will start at the counselor. And that's beautiful. I love that they have that relationship. But for all intents and purposes, we want to make sure that the campus administration is aware of any incidents of bullying, so that they can take actions to stop it. And then the counselors are brought in to do a more therapeutic, consultative, restorative so we're working hand in hand, but to make sure that the actions cease, you want to get the administrator involved as quickly as possible. And so just want to make sure that we're not starting our bullying investigations with the counselor. We want to make sure that we notify the APs or the principal as well as the counselor, so that we can be working together to investigate as well as restore relationships once the investigation is complete.
Thank you, ladies. So there are no more questions in the chat. There is a comment that I think will be a great way to end our session tonight. Well, there's one more comment that says, "You all have a huge task trying to keep kids safe while in school. I just want to say thank you for all you are doing." Thank you for the comment. We really appreciate the acknowledgement, and that's what we do. That's why we're in this business, is to make sure our kids are safe and to make sure that they're educated at the highest level possible. So thank you very much for that comment. And the final comment, it says, "Thank you all so much. This is excellent information, and I really appreciate Crowley ISD always going above to help us help our children. Thank you all for this effort." I think that's a great way to end this session. Please make sure you are sharing this information with other stakeholders in the district. This will be posted within the next few days on the Crowley ISD website. So please make sure you're sharing the information so more people can get this information, and always reach out if you have any questions, okay? Remember, the next Parent University session will be November 14th, run by Ms. Buckhalton, and it will be about the adolescent mind. So it's going to be an opportunity to understand why our students are who they are. Any closing remarks? All right, looks like we're good to go. Parents, teachers, everybody who tuned in, you all have a phenomenal evening. Thank you.